So today, as I sent in the email, we'll be having two separate presentations. They're each going to be about an hour or so. And the first one will be over banking. And so we have Barbara and Tina, who I can just let you introduce yourselves.
Are you ready for us to do that now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my name is Barbara Pratt. I'm born and raised here in Bryan, Texas. So I went to school here, graduated from Bryan High. I've been in banking or some type of lending institutions since I was 18. So I've been doing this a long time. But I'm with Commerce National Bank, and I'm the branch manager at our University Drive location.
I'm Tina Rosati. I have been here all of my adult life and most of my childhood. I am the branch manager at the location at Harvey Mitchell Parkway and Welch in College Station, beside the College Station Library. And I have been in banking since '94, so most of my adult life.
Thank you. So I think I'll just go ahead and start sharing the PowerPoint. We may have a couple more people join us, but I think almost everyone's already here, so that's good. Let me just get that ready. Can everyone see the screen? The PowerPoint, I mean. Tina and Barbara, do you see the slides okay? Okay. Do you want to go ahead and start?
Okay. All righty. Well, this presentation basically is just a brief overview of banking. So I hope you have questions along the way that you could ask us, maybe some detailed questions on a particular situation that you might have with banking. I know most of you probably already have a checking or savings, but I just kind of wanted to start from the ground up and talk about banking.
Yes, I'm sorry. One thing about the questions, if you have any questions throughout the presentation and you don't want to interrupt them, you can put them in the chat and I will ask them for you throughout the presentation. So if you think of anything that you maybe needed some clarification about, just put it in the chat and I will let them know. Okay.
Okay. All right. Basically, when you're talking about choosing a bank, there's all kind of banking options these days. As you know, you can mobile bank, you can bank at a freestanding building, you can do all your banking online. But there's going to be different ways of choosing a bank. There's different ways or methods of banking. And then you're going to have personal preferences on the products and things that you're going to want to pick once you find a bank that you want to do business with. And there are different factors that you will consider in making those decisions. So this slideshow hopefully will give you some information to help you choose the bank that will work for you.
Sorry, I forgot that I was muted. Esta presentación es una presentación de ahorros financieros personales. Entonces, van a demostrar diferentes capacidades de ahorros por los ejemplos que se presentan. Y nomás les van a dar nomás una idea de cuáles son las diferentes oportunidades, de cómo escoger un banco, diferentes tipos de cuentas, cómo escoger un banco, el método y la preferencia personal.
Choosing a bank, some of the things that you might look for are the location of the bank, and that location, how convenient it is to where you are going to need to go to see it and make it most convenient for you, whether that's convenience to your house or to your job or somewhere that you pass by every day, going back and forth. Some other things that you'll take into consideration when choosing a bank are the types of products that they have. Accounts with no service charges, check writing ability, debit cards, any perks that may come along with the account, interest, things like that. Their online banking and the functions that you want to utilize through the online banking, whether that's to be able to transfer money, if it's to pay bills through the online banking, and then the convenience of having the mobile app and the features from that online that roll to that mobile app so that you've always got your bank at your fingertips.
Cuando están empezando a pensar cómo van a escoger un banco, hay diferentes factores que pueden afectar su decisión. Entonces, lo primero es la locación. Quieren escoger un banco que esté cerca de ustedes, puede ser que esté cerca del trabajo o de donde vive, la conveniencia. Entonces, si específicamente tienen un teléfono móvil que tiene internet, puede ser que necesiten uno que tenga esa opción o uno que tenga muchos ATMs, no sé cómo se dice en español. También los diferentes productos, entonces que están buscando una cuenta de ahorros, una cuenta de checkings, cuál es lo que ustedes prefieren. Las aplicaciones móviles, como había dije antes, si no quieren necesariamente ir en persona al banco, si quieren acceder a esa información por su teléfono, si quieren esa opción. Y sería todo.
Okay, one of the things you might want to ask yourself when you're banking is, how do you like to bank? And do you like to go in person? I know for an older individual, someone like me, I like to go in because I like to face-to-face have conversation with the people I'm doing business with, especially when it's someone that I'm needing to do something with my money. So I like to know who I'm working with. So face-to-face to me is important. The internet is great. I love online banking. Personally, I'm not an online bill pay person, but for other people, that's important to do. So that may be something that when you're looking at their online product, does it have all the features that you want it to have? Shop around and get referrals. And when I say shop around, really basically is if you do not have a checking account, or you do have one now, but maybe you're not real happy with where you're banking, is to go and visit some of the local banks. There are so many banks in Bryan-College Station. They're practically on every corner. And they all have basically the same products, but yet they all have their own individual and unique products that they offer their customers. So you can go in and visit. We love for people to come in and sit down and talk to us and let us tell them about the products that we have, the features to the products, find out what it is they're looking for, what they don't like about what they have now, what they wish they had. So it is okay to just go in and talk to someone in new accounts and ask them about their banking services and products. Another thing is to get referrals, from your family and friends. It's just like anything else. If you were looking for someone to fix a roof on your home or to buy a used car from, whatever that may be, we typically talk to our friends and family and ask them, have you ever done this? Or have you ever talked to them or worked with them? So referrals are good. And now, because of the internet, all you have to do is Google people, and people have expressed their opinions. So it's out there, but it's really up to you to do your homework for what will work for you.
Entonces, lo primero que ellos les preguntan es cómo le gusta su banco. Entonces, si puede ser que le gusta más en persona, le gusta ir en persona a hablar con alguien y discutir con ellos, especialmente qué es lo que ustedes necesiten, qué es lo que están buscando, y ellos pueden hablar con ustedes. Pero también ahora con el internet pueden ir por el internet y ver esa misma información, y no es necesario que vayan en persona. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que usted prefiere? Ellas recomiendan que vayan y hablen con diferentes bancos, vean en diferentes páginas para ver especialmente lo que están buscando ustedes. Y también recomiendan que les pregunten a sus amigos, a familia, para ver qué es lo que ellos están usando, si puede ser que es algo que ustedes también estén buscando. Es muy, les puede ayudar mucho preguntar a su familia o amigos qué es lo que usan ellos y ver diferentes lugares para ver especialmente lo que les puede servir a ustedes.
So, okay, you've done all your homework, you've went around and you've asked all the questions and you found a bank. So what do you do now? What products do you need to open? That's going to depend on what your goals are financially. If you just need an account where you can put your paycheck and be able to pay your bills, then a checking account is going to be a great option for you. If you're needing something to help you save along with that checking account, so you take the money out of there and you could put it into a savings account or a certificate of deposit. A certificate of deposit is going to have a minimum balance requirement on it in most cases, and it is going to be a set term. So once you put your money in there, it's money that you're not supposed to touch until it matures. And that can be anywhere from 30 days to 5 years with most banks. A lot of times it'll give you a little bit higher interest rate than a savings account, but again, the minimum balance and the access to it is a little bit tougher than just your standard savings accounts. What if you need a loan, something to help you build your credit a little bit more? Does the bank that you're looking at what kind of loans do they offer for you? And then what other banking services may you need to utilize, whether that's the online banking again, or whether that's safety deposit boxes, or you're looking at starting your own business. How can that bank that you've chose help you figure out the products that you're going to need?
Entonces, ya que encuentren un banco, ¿ahora qué? Entonces, específicamente qué productos necesitan abrir? Entonces, necesitan una cuenta de cheques, algún lugar donde puedan recibir los depósitos del trabajo, o necesitan una cuenta de ahorro. Entonces, hay diferentes tipos de cuentas de ahorro, como las normales, que nomás pueden poner dinero ahí todo cuando ustedes quieran, o también hay unos que son diferentes, que son como un certificado, que ustedes ponen dinero y por un cierto tiempo no pueden tocar ese dinero. Entonces, por ejemplo, si es uno de 5 años, por esos 5 años está creciendo ese dinero, y ya que se terminen los 5 años pueden agarrar ese dinero. Entonces hay diferentes cuentas de ahorros. Puede ser que necesiten un préstamo. Como la semana pasada hablamos de préstamos predatorios, los bancos obviamente tienen más regulaciones, entonces puede ser que les pueda ayudar a crecer su crédito. O cuáles otros servicios necesitan de ese banco, pueden preguntar.
Okay, the banking business process. What is the process to do those things that you're needing? For a checking account, basically all you have to bring in to do a checking account would be your driver's license, some current valid ID, a government issued ID, whether it's a state ID, a driver's license, a passport, something that is issued by the government that's not expired. It needs to be current. That's all you need for your checking account and the savings account. Different banks have different minimum balances that they require you to open those with. I'm just going to use our bank example, but every bank is a little bit different. So, $50 to open a checking. I think it's $30 to only open a savings account. So it's a small amount to get started. Your lending, there again, all banks have commercial lenders, and they also have consumer lenders that can help you with just personal loans. Some banks have the ability to offer credit to people that are helping them build their credit, so to speak, so that it reports to the credit bureau for them. The other services that they have, again, is the online banking, the internet, debit cards. There's cash cards. You can get gift cards from your bank. They can do direct deposit for you, set up automatic payments where you can have your bills automatically deducted from your checking account for you. So there's all types of services that the bank itself can offer you.
Hay muchos diferentes servicios, algunos de muchos de estos ya estamos hablando de ellos, pero hay diferentes procesos que los bancos dan. Entonces, por ejemplo, una cuenta de cheques, ella dijo que, por ejemplo, en su banco es $50 para abrir una cuenta de cheques, entonces es diferente en cada diferente banco y diferentes cuentas. Entonces, esa cuenta de cheques les puede ayudar para controlar su situación financiera, para pagar las cuentas efectivamente, como los biles, cosas así. También hay una diferencia entre la tarjeta de débito, tarjeta de crédito, entonces con la cuenta de cheque sería una tarjeta de débito. Y pueden conectar esa cuenta de cheques a la cuenta de ahorros, que es el diferente proceso que tiene, que es una cuenta de ahorros. Puede ser que tenga bajo interés, puede ser que tenga un límite o un certificado de depósito, que es lo que estábamos hablando antes. Y los diferentes servicios como si quieren ese acceso con el internet, que pueden checar su cuenta de banco con su teléfono o con una computadora, o si no necesitan eso, si prefieren un ATM donde puedan sacar ese dinero. Entonces, ¿cuáles son los diferentes servicios que ellos ofrecen? Pueden ver ustedes qué exactamente es lo que ustedes necesitan.
Carla, are there any questions at this point?
There are not.
Okay.
What are some of the types of accounts that you do need? A checking account will help you manage and control your financial situation, from being able to pay your bills more efficiently, to being able to have somewhere for your direct deposit to go, because a lot of employers require that direct deposit now. Some places require that they have an account that they can debit for your payment. Whether that's your utilities, or if you go to rent a car, you have to have some way of putting that deposit down. And that's kind of where your debit card could come in handy there. The differences between a free checking and an interest-bearing checking account is a free checking account is typically not going to have a monthly minimum balance requirement. It could still have you have a minimum balance or minimum deposit to open it, but you're not required to maintain that in there. So you're not going to have any service charges, for not keeping $50 or $100 in there. You could still have other fees for other services that you may utilize, but as far as the checking account itself, there's no service charges on there. An interest-bearing account is going to have a minimum balance requirement in most cases. And with that, it's going to pay you a little bit of money to keep that money in the bank. We, using our bank as an example, we have what we have is an award checking account. That checking account does not require a monthly minimum balance, but it does require certain transactions to happen on the account monthly to earn an interest rate. And that annual percentage yield on that, if you do all the debits and online banking and all of the stuff that's required on there, is 1%, which is pretty good. Some interest-bearing accounts, you don't have to do those transactions. You just have to keep that minimum balance in there to earn whatever interest rate that bank is paying.
Entonces, la próxima cosa de la que van a hablar es cuáles son los diferentes tipos de cuentas que ustedes necesitan. Entonces, ya había hablado un poquito de la cuenta de cheques, pero esto, como dije, les puede ayudar a manejar y controlar su situación financiera. Ella mencionó, que hay muchos trabajos hoy en día que requieren que tengan una cuenta de cheques para depositar para depositar el dinero que les pagan. Entonces puede ser que necesiten una cuenta de cheques para eso. También les puede ayudar a pagar las diferentes cuentas más fácil. Entonces pueden pagar sus utilidades, su teléfono, con su tarjeta de débito. Y hay dos diferentes tipos de cuentas de cheque. Hay una que es gratis. Entonces la diferencia de una cuenta de cheque que es gratis con una que tiene interés. Las que tienen interés no es que les cobren interés, es que les dan, si tienen un mínimo, no sé, de $50 en esa cuenta de cheque, puede ganar interés si no gasta ese dinero. Entonces, eso le puede ayudar si quiere no necesariamente una cuenta de ahorros, pero una cuenta de débito, de cheque, perdón, que pueda ganar dinero si deja ese dinero ahí, eso puede ser una diferente opción.
Okay, we're continue to talk about the different types of accounts. Of course, your checking account, you get a debit card with the checking. Every debit card, different depending on location, you need to know what your debit card limit or spending limit is each day on a debit card. Some places just allow you to spend, I don't have this much in my checking right now to spend $1,000 a day, but typically, you know, the debit card will let you spend up to $1,000 a day if you have that in your checking account. Our debit card allows up to $4,000 a day if you have that much in your checking account. So debit cards, all depending on where you bank, you need to know what is your daily limit. How much can I pull from my ATM if I use my debit card each day? And because if you need to use your debit card and spend more than what your limit is, your bank would need to do a temporary limit increase for you so that you can make the purchase or pay the bill that you need to pay. So find out what your daily limits are on your debit cards. With debit card versus using a check, you know, today in today's world, you don't see people use checks a whole lot. I do from time to time, but I use my debit card for everything. I rarely even have money in my billfold. I just swipe my debit card. It's just too convenient. But, you know, checks are still available. Some checking accounts give you free checks. Some do not. If you need just some temporary checks because you're not a big check writer and you just need a few checks, I can print a few up right there on their location and give those to you. Other types of accounts is the bank offers credit card. And comparing why would you use a credit card versus the debit card. The debit card, you have to have that money in the checking account if you're going to use it. Whereas a credit card gives you a spending limit and you can charge your things on that card, but then you have to pay it back in monthly payments, and that card charges you interest for using that limit. So debit cards are for you, but you're really spending your own money. That's it. A bank can offer. It is not something that they are required to do. It is just a service that the banks will provide to their customer. Another way, if you don't want to carry overdraft protection on your account because you don't, which is a good thing because that way it saves you from being charged any overdraft fees. Because if you over dollars, so if, for instance, you had a couple of hundred in your checking and you either wrote a check or you're going to get hit 19 because you went over the amount of money you had in your checking account. Fees on that, that's another thing you'd want to ask your bank because they can vary from 19. I've seen them up as high as $38. So depending on where you bank, you need to check their overdraft fees if you were to overdraft. You can connect a checking and savings to each other so that if you have a savings account that's attached to your checking for overdraft purposes only, then if you did have to withdraw more money than you needed out of your, had in your checking, it would be okay because it would come from your savings and move into your checking for you and automatically cover that purchase that you're making or that withdrawal. So your savings can act as overdraft protection. Checking or savings fees, sometimes some of the banks, because if you do use your savings as a padding to your checking, so that if you were to overdraft, that bank for automatically setting that up and moving that money for you automatically can have a fee. It can vary from bank to bank. And I've seen it as high as $12. But like I said, there's so many banks out there now, and everybody has different services and fees that they charge for those. So that would be another question to ask when you're shopping around or getting information about the checking account that you're going to open. How does the overdraft work? And what will that cost me if I use it?
Hablando un poco más de los diferentes tipos de cuentas, como dije, ya hablamos un poquito de las tarjetas de débito. Entonces, ¿cuál es la diferencia si quiere cheques? Por ejemplo, nosotros aquí en Habitat, en nosotros, nomás aceptamos money orders, giros de cuenta o, o cheques. Entonces, eso sería algo que puedan, si quieren, si necesitan que les den cheques gratis, es algo que ustedes pueden pensar. También una tarjeta de crédito es otra cosa que el banco les pueda ofrecer. Entonces, si quieren crecer su cuenta de crédito, entonces puede ser una buena opción tener esa tarjeta de crédito para crecer su crédito. También otra cosa que puede pensar es si necesita la protección de sobregiro. Entonces, a veces, y es una buena opción porque cuando están pagando algo y les cobran y no tienen suficiente dinero en el banco, lo que pueden hacer es que el banco lo cubre, pero luego les cobra a ustedes si no pagan ese dinero ese mismo día. Entonces, típicamente es de 19 a $35. Entonces, una opción para que no les cobren es conectar su cuenta de cheques con su cuenta de ahorros. Entonces, si hacen un pago y todavía les falta, como por ejemplo, unos $20, pueden agarrar sus $20 de la cuenta de ahorro para cubrir ese dinero. Entonces, eso puede ser una opción para ustedes si quieren hablar con su banco para ver si ellos ofrecen eso. Pero también ellas dijeron que a veces algunos bancos también les puede cobrar por hacer um, esa, ese cambio de dinero. Entonces, dice que algunos bancos cobran hasta $12 para hacer eso. Entonces, obviamente cuando vayan al banco, pregunten sobre eso, pregunten cuál es su póliza de sobregiro y cuánto les van a cobrar y toda esa información.
Are there any questions at this point, Carla?
Not in the chat, but if anybody wants to unmute themselves and talk to, and if they want to ask a question, they're more than welcome to, or put it in the chat, whichever.
Okay.
Okay, other types of accounts that you could get at a bank is a savings account. A basic savings account, a lot of time, is called the passbook savings account. Savings accounts are going to have limits on how many times you can take money out of the account. Some banks it's on a monthly basis, some banks it's on a quarterly basis. So wherever you're looking at opening that savings account, be sure that you ask those questions on how often, because if you go over those fees, over those withdrawals, there can be fees anywhere from $2 to $10 per withdrawal for going over those. A lot of times your passbook savings is going to be your lower balance account, so the interest is going to be a little bit lower. The requirements on them can be anywhere from, like, our basic savings minimum balance requirements $30. Other banks are going to be $100. Some may be higher than that. So that's just, a great place to start tucking away money to get it out of your checking account, so it's not quite so easy for you to spend. The next thing is CDs, or certificates of deposit. Those, as we touched on earlier, are a fixed term, and the money's tied up until it matures. So if you got a 30-day CD today, your funds are not accessible to you for 30 days. If you were to need to get to those funds prior to that, there's going to be a penalty for early withdrawal. That penalty can go into the principal amount that you added into that account to start with. So you could come out with less money than what you put in there. Typically, a CD is going to pay a little bit higher interest rate than your basic savings account. Right now, example, our 1 year CD has an annual percentage yield of 0.50. It goes up the longer that you put that money in there. Money market accounts, you're still limited on the withdrawals that you can do, just like a basic passbook savings account, but you do have some check writing capabilities. So you can write up to so many checks a month and come in to the bank and get withdrawals out as well. Anything that's auto paid out of those accounts count toward those withdrawals. The interest rate on those is typically going to be higher than a passbook savings and will typically require a minimum balance requirement anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500, for example, as the minimum balance to not get a service charge. Money market accounts, your withdrawal limits go from on a monthly basis, whether it's a calendar month or it's a statement month. That's going to depend on the bank that you bank at. There's also such things as a health savings account. And what that is where when you have a high deductible health plan, you can tuck money into that account to help pay for those medical expenses. Most banks, it's going to come with a debit card and check writing capability so that you can pay the doctor when you go see them, and you'll earn a little bit of interest. Ours, for example, does not have a minimum balance requirement, but some banks could have a minimum balance requirement.
Los diferentes tipos de cuentas de ahorros, lo que es lo más normal es lo que le llaman la libreta básica. Entonces, esos son los típicos cuentas de ahorros que no requieren tanto dinero, porque hay muchos que tienen un mínimo que necesitan tener en ese banco, en esa cuenta de ahorro, perdón. Entonces, esa libreta básica es el mínimo dinero que es requerido, es más bajo. Y tienen retiros limitados, entonces típicamente son 6 cada mes o puede ser que sean algunos cada otro mes, cada temporada, nomás depende del banco, pero tienen esos retiros limitados. Entonces si se suben, por ejemplo, de esas 6 retiros en un mes, les pueden cobrar. Y son de bajo interés, entonces el dinero que usted deja ahí no gana tanto dinero como en una cuenta que voy a hablar siguientemente. No tienen tanto interés que ganan si dejan ese dinero ahí. La siguiente tipo de cuenta de ahorro es un certificado de depósito. Entonces hablamos un poquito antes de eso, pero tiene un plazo fijo donde su dinero se tiene que quedar ahí hasta que sea maduro. Entonces, por ejemplo, un banco, una cuenta de un año, por ese año no puede tocar ese dinero, y si trata de sacar ese dinero de ahí le pueden dar una penalización por retirar anticipadamente ese dinero. Entonces les pueden cobrar si retiran el dinero antes del tiempo que se necesita la cuenta. También otra cuenta de ahorro es la cuenta del mercado monetario, que es similar a la libreta básica, donde usted tiene igual esos retiros limitados, pero también tiene la opción de escribir cheques con esa cuenta. Entonces, si necesita pagar alguna cuenta, algún bill, puede usar esa cuenta de ahorros para escribir cheques como si fuera cuenta de cheques. Usualmente también estas tienen más interés que la cuenta básica, entonces pueden ganar más dinero si dejan ese dinero ahí. Y es igual que la libreta básica, donde pueden ganar dinero. También otra es la cuenta de ahorros para la salud. Entonces, si las de ellas dicen que no tienen ningún límite de cuánto dinero tiene que estar en esa cuenta, pero estas cuentas les pueden ayudar por si hay una emergencia de salud, tienen ese dinero para por si acaso, por emergencias. Somebody asked if a CD is like a 401k.
Okay. A CD it's not a 401k. It's not like one. Your CD is basically it's just a savings account. It's your money that you put in there. You determine how much you want to put in there. You can get that money. You do, like Tina had said earlier, if you draw it out of the fixed term, let's say you put $1,000 in a 12-month CD, and in month number 9 you had to come and get some of that $1,000 out, or the whole thing, you're going to be penalized because you took it out early. So you'd have to talk to the bank, and they'll explain to you what their penalty is, because some banks will do it different than others. A 401k is a retirement plan which typically you can make those deposits yourself or they're payroll deducted. But the penalty on those are different because if you take out money out of the 401k, that money is like pre-taxed. So it comes out of your paycheck, it goes into the 401k immediately. You paid no tax on that money. Whereas money you yourself have gotten and you bring and you put in the CD, you've already paid your income tax on that. So if you withdraw money from a 401k, which you can borrow, against a 401k, and you can do loans that way, but you will pay a bigger and steeper penalty. I think it's like around 20% a penalty or tax, so to speak, that would be paid to the government for pulling that money, out of the 401k. So that would be, if you have the opportunity to do a 401k, because depending on how they invest it, that's a good place to put money with a better rate of return, especially right now because of the market. The stock market is really good right now, and bank rates and saving rates and lending rates are really, really low. I mean, right now you can buy a home and only pay like 2.75% interest on buying a house. I'm 65 years old, and I was in mortgage for 12 years. I have never seen interest rates this low. So this is a very phenomenal time to purchase a car or a house. It's not a very good time for savings because you're not making that much interest on your savings products. So a 401k, if you have the ability to invest in one of those through your job, and they invest that money for you, typically your rate of return will be better than a CD. But again, that is money you're putting in before you pay taxes. So when you do take money out, you will pay income tax on it.
Entonces, una pregunta que dieron es que si la cuenta de certificado de depósito es similar a un 401k, lo que es ahorros de jubilación. Y ella dijo que no es lo mismo. La cuenta de depósito de certificado, tiene típicamente de 1 año a 5 años, lo que sea, y tiene una penalización si retira dinero anticipadamente de lo que el periodo es, pero en una cuenta de ahorros de jubilación les dan más interés, les dan más interés. Entonces, si lo que ella está explicando es que si tiene la oportunidad de tener una cuenta de ahorros de jubilación, ella lo recomienda mucho porque tiene una tasa de retorno que es más grande. Entonces, al último les dan más dinero. Si dejan ese dinero ahí, crece más interés y gana más dinero con ese dinero que está ahí. Entonces es diferente a la cuenta de depósito porque esos son ahorros que típicamente los toman directamente de su sueldo. Y también un ahorro de jubilación, si deciden sacar dinero de ahí, les cobran aún más de taxas. Entonces es aún más caro si sacan dinero de esa cuenta de ahorros de jubilación comparado con ahorros de certificado. Another question was, can a CD be used for a holiday or a vacation account?
Okay. Just real quickly before I answer that, I do want to mention on the 401k, a lot of employers will match what you put in there, or they'll match up to a certain percentage. So that's really free money to you if your employer is willing to put money into that 401k for you. So 401ks are for long-term savings. You're putting money there that you don't plan to touch for a long time, whether you're saving for a house or your retirement. So just give that some thought when you get ready to set up your 401k. That's long-term savings. A CD, again, that's a savings account. It's your money. You can use it for whatever you want. So if you know next spring or next summer you're going to want to take a big trip and you have money to put aside for it now, and let's say I'm just going to use $1,000, but let's say your trip's going to cost you $1,000 and you know you're going to go in 6 months and you have the money now, you could put it in a 6-month CD so that I can't get to it. It's not easy for me to go in there every month and grab a little bit out of there. It is set there for 6 months. It'll earn interest, and then at the 6 months when it matures, then you use the money for whatever you want to. You can also use your CD to borrow against, so it can be collateral on a loan. So instead of breaking the CD or dipping into it, if you decide, you know, I'd rather go borrow $1,000 and let my $1,000 CD be the collateral, and it's easier for me to pay a little payment every month. And then knowing once I pay the loan off, I still have my CD. So that you can use the CD as collateral on a personal loan.
Otra cosa que ella quería mencionar del ahorro de jubilación es que es un ahorro de largo plazo, entonces no es igual como el certificado de depósito, y si su empleador puede igualar el dinero que está en esa cuenta de jubilación, es dinero gratis que su empleador puede igualar, y entonces tiene ahora, por ejemplo, si tiene ahí $1,000 y su trabajo iguala esos $1,000, ahora tiene 2,000. Entonces es algo que si su empleador lo ofrece, le pedimos que vean más sobre eso, y es una buena opción de tener ese ahorro de largo plazo. Otra pregunta que quiero es que si el certificado de depósito se puede usar para, por ejemplo, vacaciones, y ella dijo que ese dinero se puede usar para lo que ustedes quieran. Entonces, si por ejemplo ustedes saben, que tienen unas vacaciones en 6 meses y y va a costar, por ejemplo, $1,000, pueden ahorrar esos $1,000 y dejarlos en esa cuenta de certificado de depósito y no tocarlos, y en 6 meses ganaron un poco más dinero por no tocar ese dinero y ya lo tienen listo. También dice que se puede usar como colateral, entonces si están pidiendo un préstamo, de, por ejemplo, un carro, pueden enseñar que tienen ese dinero guardado como colateral, entonces no necesariamente tienen que sacar ese dinero, pero pueden decir que quieren usar ese dinero como colateral. Another question was if you have an emergency, will they still charge you if you take out money from that CD?
Okay. Just one, before I answer that question, one more thing on the CDs is a lot of banks don't allow you to add money to the CD unless it's at its maturity. Some banks may offer specials from time to time where they have something called like a step up CD or something where you can add like one time during the term. So if that's something that you're thinking about, just, be sure that you ask that bank about it. Anytime that you take money out of the CD, there's going to be a penalty on it if it's outside of its maturity. If it's not most banks will have a 10-day grace period that it matures on the 30th, so you'll have until 10 days after that to come in and do something with it, or it rolls in for another term of the same. Now, if there's, the owner of the CD passes, something like that, then yes, the penalties are waived in that case. But if you're just needing to get the funds out of the account, in most cases, those penalties will not be waived.
Otra pregunta que tenían es que si en esa cuenta de certificado de depósito, si tienen una emergencia, si todavía les cobran. Entonces ella dijo que así les cobran, no importa si es una emergencia, cada vez que saquen dinero antes del tiempo tienen esa penalización. Entonces la única vez que no les cobran es si la persona que estaba a nombre de la cuenta se muere, entonces no hay una penalización. Y también otra cosa que ella quería mencionar es que no pueden añadir dinero a esa cuenta de certificado de depósito. Hay algunas veces que sí les dan una otra chance de añadir dinero, pero típicamente no pueden sacar dinero antes de tiempo y no pueden meter más dinero antes de tiempo. Any other questions before we move on?
Paula, I have a question.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, it's just for me, because pretty much I know how to save all the stuff they're speaking on. I have either had it or I broke a CD, so I pretty much know about that. But my whole thing is now it's like I commute back and forth to work, and I have a bigger SUV. So the gas for me is higher, like the expense. So I just need to know, what do they think I should save out of a check if my gross is like 7, but I bring home about 5 something and I only have like maybe $300 worth of bills a month. What is the average I should save in a monthly, on a monthly basis?
Okay.
I feel like we will probably talk a little bit more about this in our budgeting
Oh,
class.
okay.
Okay.
You have a
But-
budgeting class. Okay.
Yeah. So the budgeting class is the last one that we'll have during this financial classes. And
Okay.
so during that class, you will get a budget toolkit beforehand that you will fill out, and then we'll kind of go over it during the meeting, and also she will share kind of tips on things like that, like savings and the whole idea of zero-based budgeting and all of that. So I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that, but I just wanted to mention that we will be covering that later.
Okay.
If I use a HSA, what happens if there's money left over in the account at the end of the year?
That it rolls over. It's not like a cafeteria plan where the money that you put in there at the end of the year, if you haven't used it, you lose it. An HSA, you can keep adding to and it rolls over. It is your money. But if you use the money for things that are not healthcare related and do not fall under the parameters of the health savings account guidelines, there can be IRS penalties. So you want to be careful what you're using it for, and be sure that you check before you go spend money for medical expenses for those things to be covered, because a lot of over-the-counter medications are not covered. But at the end of the year, that money is yours. It's just going to roll over, and you can keep using it for medical expenses the next year and until it's gone if you're not adding any more to it.
Otra pregunta es si una cuenta de ahorros para la salud, si después de un año, por ejemplo, si todavía quedó dinero en esa cuenta, ¿qué le pasa a ese dinero? Entonces ella dijo que no le pasa nada, ese dinero es suyo, no se va a perder o nada por el estilo. No más que si quiere mencionar que si es una cuenta de ahorros especialmente para la salud, no puede usar ese dinero para otras cosas que no sean médicas. Entonces, si usa ese dinero para otras cosas que no son cuentas médicas, no son para la salud, les pueden cobrar una penalidad o algún interés. Entonces tengan en cuenta eso, que nomás es para la salud y todo eso, y el dinero es para ustedes, es de ustedes y no se va a perder hasta que se termine el dinero.
Okay. Another thing that's attached to your checking account or a service is the ability to get cash from an ATM. And typically, if you use the ATM at your banks, then you're not charged an ATM fee. But if you take your debit card and go to an ATM that belongs to another bank, that machine will take a fee for using like an unknown debit card. So an example, if you went to a Wells Fargo ATM with our debit card from Commerce National, the ATM machine, Wells Fargo, will charge a fee because that card does not belong to their bank. So there's a fee there. Some checking accounts, and we do offer this on some of ours, do reimbursement of ATM fees up to $15 a month. So that is a service or a benefit we offer. It's not something that all banks will do, but that is something you can ask your bank. Do you refund ATM fees each month? So that is another cost to you, is using an ATM that is not affiliated with your bank. Now, using the debit card, use the debit card. You can say credit or debit when you're using the card. Go into the ATM, you put your debit card in, you can pull out cash immediately, but it comes out of your checking account immediately, of course. Using your PIN with your debit card is probably, I would say, the safest way to do it, so that when you have fraud on your debit card, they can tell if it was used with a PIN or unpinned and that type of thing. Always be careful with your debit card. When you're using it at an ATM or just checking out at a store, try to you know, I look at every machine to be sure there doesn't look like there's something weird attached to it, because there is a lot of debit card fraud. But I do try to protect my number, you know, by shielding with my hand. And, you know, I do use my 4-digit PIN so that the bank can identify that whoever used it actually knew your PIN. Credit cards used to provide more consumer protections, but in today's world, debit cards are so popular, they basically have the same protections as a credit card.
Otra cosa que necesita ver con las diferentes cuentas es si tienen cajeros automáticos. Si necesitas sacar dinero en efectivo, algunos bancos nomás pueden usar su cuenta, su tarjeta en el cajero automático que es de su banco. Entonces, si usan, por ejemplo, tienen una cuenta de Wells Fargo y van a otro diferente banco, les pueden cobrar dinero si sacan dinero con ese cajero automático. Entonces, eso también depende de cada banco, de cuánto le cobran. Dice que el banco de ellas no les regresan ese dinero cada mes. Entonces, si, por ejemplo, están usando una cuenta, un cajero automático que no es del mismo banco, en el banco de ellos le regresan ese dinero cada mes. Entonces, todo igual depende del banco. La tarjeta de débito la pueden usar como tarjeta de crédito, entonces la pueden usar en diferentes lugares para pagar ese dinero. Y también pueden usarlo para sacar dinero en efectivo. Dice que las tarjetas de crédito antes tenían más protección contra el fraude, pero lamentablemente como son tan popular ahora en día, que es básicamente lo mismo que tener una cuenta de débito. A question that was from the last one is, if you get insurance that covers a health insurance, I'm assuming she's talking about, can you get that HSA money back?
Okay, repeat that question again, please.
So the question is, if you get medical insurance that covers everything, that so maybe you didn't have it before, but now you do, can you get the HSA money back?
Okay, the only way you can open an HSA account is if you currently carry health insurance that has a very high deductible. So if you get on another insurance through your work, or you purchase insurance that doesn't have a high deductible any longer, maybe you're not even needing to have the HSA account. Like Tina said, that money is yours, and you can close the HSA and take the money out of the account.
But you can continue, in most cases, my understanding is if you get better insurance later, you can continue to spend the money that's in that HSA account for those medical expenses. Because if you close the account and you're not going to use it for medical expenses, you could still incur an IRS penalty.
Otra pregunta de lo que estábamos hablando antes de la cuenta de ahorro para la salud es que si estas cuentas las pueden abrir si tienen un deducible alto, si el seguro de salud que tienen un deducible que es muy alto, para eso son estas cuentas. Entonces, si por ejemplo cambian de seguro o tienen un seguro mejor, compran otro seguro que no tiene un deducible tan alto, ese dinero todavía está ahí para ustedes, pero sí lo pueden cerrar esa cuenta y les regresan el dinero, pero todavía les pueden cobrar una penalidad el gobierno porque están sacando el dinero, están usando el dinero no para la salud. Entonces, ellos recomiendan que dejen ese dinero ahí, que todavía lo pueden usar para cosas médicas. Entonces, aunque cambien de seguro, todavía es el dinero ahí para ustedes.
Okay, so when you go into the bank to open the checking account, the bank's going to have its procedures. Barbara touched on some of the information that you'll need to provide. Some banks are going to require, proof of address, whether that's a utility bill or something in addition, that the bank will let you know this information. But most banks are also going to pull a check systems report. And what that is when you have an account at a bank and you owe that bank money because you've overdrawn the account and you haven't paid it back, or that even if you paid it back, some banks are going to report it anyway. And that's going to stay on that banking record for 5 years. The data is used by the bank to determine risk of a new customer. And banks report to check systems if an account is closed with a negative balance, or if you lied to open an account, you had you conducted fraud on the account or something like that, or something that they thought was that way. A check systems report having something on there can hinder your ability to open an account at other banks. So, you know, if you got into a situation and you needed to, you know, you overdrew your account, try to get it cleared up as fast as you can so you don't get something out here. Because, again, if you have an employer that requires direct deposit, even if you're not happy where you are and you want to change banks, you want to be sure that you keep this check systems record clear so that you have that freedom to move around if you so desire.
Si usted anteriormente tuvo una cuenta de cheques sobregirada que abandonó con un saldo negativo, es posible que su nombre se vaya a ese sistema que se llama Check Systems. Entonces, básicamente es un récord que se queda ahí por 5 años, y esa información, ese récord, también lo usan diferentes bancos para determinar el riesgo de un nuevo cliente. Entonces, si, por ejemplo, tiene que cerrar, deja esa cuenta, la deja negativamente, si usted va y trata de abrir otra diferente cuenta de banco, puede ser que vean esa información y piensen que usted es mucho riesgo, tenerlo como un nuevo cliente. Entonces es mejor no hacer eso y tratar de cerrar una cuenta bien y no dejarla negativamente.
FDIC, what is this? It's Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC. Your money in the bank is federally insured. And what that means, it's protection. So if the bank were to fail or is forced to closure, your money is protected up to $250,000 per individual or titled account. So if you have a checking just in your name only, and you have 100,000 in there, if you have 25,000 or 1,000, and the bank fails or is forced to close, the FDIC insurance retrieves or helps you get your money back so that you do not lose your money. So I would say all banks are federally deposit insured corporation. They have FDIC insurance. Credit unions have a different type of insurance, but banks do have that insurance for you. Now, the FDIC insurance only applies to a checking and savings account, to a CD or a money market account. It does not cover items that you might put in a safe deposit box or investment accounts. So the FDIC only insures money that's actually put into a checking, savings, CD, or money market.
Todos los bancos tienen lo que se llama FDIC y básicamente es una protección. Si el banco falla, si se tiene que cerrar, si algo pasa, su dinero está protegido. Entonces, esto aplica para las cuentas de cheques, de ahorros y de CDs, que son las cuentas de depósito. Entonces, dice que todos los bancos tienen esa protección. Lo único que no cubre son las cajas seguras y las inversiones de cuentas. Entonces, estos son lo único que no cubre, pero protección está ahí para proteger su dinero. Okay. Sorry.
I think this might be our last slide.
Yeah, I think so.
So is there any other questions?
¿Hay otras preguntas? Or any questions that you could unmute yourself and speak on there, or you can put it in the chat, whichever one you want.
We want to thank you for letting us come and visit with you. This is the first time I've ever done a Zoom class, so I hope it was okay. We appreciate you letting us be here.
And your questions were great.
Yes, we appreciate the questions.
Thank you guys so much. It is 7:32. So we will be back at 7:40 for the next class. So we can just have, like last time when we had a little break. Oh, he said thank you for presenting. If so, we'll be back I will be back at 8 for the next class. Any last questions before we say bye to Barbara and Tina? Thank you guys so much for presenting. You guys did great.
Okay, thank you.